Okay. Here we are going to introduce QObject and the DataCore vFilO integrated solution. Now for this solution, we recommend product is TVS H1688X. This is for SMB object storage solution. And the other is TS-H2490FU. This is an all-flash array product. This is for enterprise object storage. And now I will glad to invite DataCore Technical Account Manager Joshua to introduce our solution. Thanks, Joshua.
Hello everyone, this is DataCore Joshua, live from DataCore GRC. I'm happy here to let you know about DataCore solutions and how our product can perfectly fit with QNAP storage. Especially today, we focus more on QNAP new launch QObjects with DataCore vFilO. So for today's agenda, I will give you an overview about DataCore SDS portfolio and why and when to consider DataCore vFilO. I will also let you know our software components and the deployment example. I will give you some simple functional demo. Then we'll have a conclusion. So DataCore 1 is our vision to provide software-defined only solution that can cover any kind of storage devices, provide you a hardware agnostic solutions. So this software allow you to adaptable to different deployment models. One approach for block file and objects. So you can automate the management and unify the data protections, and you can dynamically put your data to the right performance and the cost within a single pane of glass management. So that's our vision. And as you may know, long times ago, DataCore has a product called Symphony focused on block virtualization, whether it is from internal disks or external SAN. You can also use this software to form and hyperconverge infrastructures. The primary access method is use iSCSI and fiber. And we use this product focused on those performance-hungry and business-critical applications without a downtime in the storage level. And we just launched a new product called vFilO. It's a vFilO, which allow you to assimilate your existing NAS, and you can aggregate that and optimize your data placement, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud. The primary access method is by NFS and SMB. And the primary use case we'll introduce that more later in following slides. We also have a Swarm. It's an object product focused on the massively and scalable data, which is relatively static and need a long-term protections, archiving, etc., etc. So you can treat it like an on-prem AWS S3, similar like QNAP QObjects. So let's start from a scenario. In the beginning, there's a company that has a single file server which puts all the data centrally in one device. And that's good. Very simple. All files access centrally, a single management. But when the data builds in and grows up, then you need to expand and move your data to the new device. And there's some issues happen here. Maybe you can use a backup software to move your data, or you can use some feature on the story itself to provide a single point of value. And then, more complicated when the times goes on, your data growing, they will lead some more challenges. For example, when you have more devices, you need to manually move your data and split the shares between the files. And you probably need to redirect your applications and users to the new locations. And sometimes when data is growing fast and it's difficult for the user to look into where is the files. And so the file organization becomes an issue. And in the backend resources, the uneven loading and capacity consumptions happened. So why and when you can consider a different approach instead of the hardware-centered solutions. First, if you have a diverse of resources, existing NAS or filers, you can use vFilO to pool and load balance that across different devices. And this device may be in the same location or across the building. If you have a high latent, high bandwidth network and low latency network. Second, you can also leverage the vFilO to scale out your file accessing beyond the capability of monolithic filers, which means you don't no longer have the hardware lock-in. Third, you can use vFilO, enable the file sharing across the co-dependent sites. Maybe it's on-prem or it's on a cloud. This case is more unique. We will talk about that more detail later. So let's look back to this scenario. So in this case, this customer has multiple NAS or filers, and the folders are tied to the hardware. And some systems idles. Maybe there's some NAS only used for backup, and some NAS this is critical, serving the very important data. But there always some data is hot, and some data is not used frequently. So the space are occupied with seldom used file also could happen on those expensive NAS. So instead of focus on the hardware century of data stored mechanism or approach, we want to provide a unified namespace by decouple the file sharing from hardware devices and locations to make a simple unified access point. Here, for example, you can form a new global share. You can search all the folders without need to thinking where the file located in which devices. And you can take the full advantage of all these assets by properly distributing files without upsetting the application or users. So vFilO can maximize your value by these features like pool or load balancing there and replicate between different NAS volumes. And you can roll the shares up under a single or fewer namespace. And you can even offload some inactive file to the object store to lower the cost. So what's the benefit here? Apparently, you can optimize the capacity, bringing the higher availability of the data and the durability when there's some devices fail. You can give it a simple global access and lower your cost while time's moving on. You can replace that backgroundly without interrupt your application. So by establishing this flexible file level virtualized layer, you can offload your inactive files in the lower cost storage, like object storage, that can help you to free up the premier resources to like QNAP object or to the cloud, and every files that move to the objects will automatically deduped and compressioned. So that can lower the cost and the space. And the file names remain visible and are automatically recalled when there's an access increased. You move from the object back to the NAS volume. So everything is very simple and nothing changed to the user's perspective. And the third case that would be more unique and possibly have happened in your environment is if you have a collaborate project across the region, some data located in the data center, some is on the remote office. And the NAS protocol is very hard for those files to be shared across the sites. And vFilO allow you to select the file, share, and replications for the application and users at different locations. What does that mean? It means that you don't need to copy everything in a place and synchronize those files in the central, like maybe in the cloud or in the third location. That is very cost expensive and bandwidth consuming. vFilO allow you to only replicate when needed, and you can still see those files by synchronize the metadata only, which is a more lightweight. By using this approach, you can switch your workload in between the local and the remote site during the different period. Maybe it's a different country, so it's different time zone. You can also consider to have a replicated data on two sites act as a disaster recovery also. So by this approach, vFilO allow you to migrate the workload easier across the different location and region. So those applications, when they need the data, they can address that according to their application and their facilities. So give you some high-level architecture about global file share. So in each site, you will deploy the vFilO, and we have a different component in between the sites. It will continually synchronize the metadata, so each site can see all the data like it's sitting in local. And when you need some files, that vFilO will move that file to a centralized object storage, and it will be deduped and compressed, which means we will minimize the bandwidth and capacity consumptions, and then move those file as a cache to the remote site. So the remote site can see the file, can access the file, like in the local, like the person in the data center. And when there's a file exists or editing at the same time, vFilO will trigger a mechanisms by adding some like versioning or a suffix naming appending on the file. So the administrator can reconcile those files by themselves. This is a different approach we call a collision avoidance by vFilO, and that's a different differentiation approach from vFilO to the other competitors. I know this is a little bit complicated, but I want to give you some very high level introduction about global file share. Let's look at the software component of vFilO. It has two components. First, it's a metadata component called vFilO, which will store every metadata in itself. And it will coordinate all the jobs, schedule that, and telling that DataCore nodes to move the data or replicate the data, etc., etc. And it's the core of the management endpoint. The other component is called DSX, which means the data service node. It will execute the job moving, whether it's from the local, in between the local or to the cloud. And it can act like a I/O proxy for the writes if you are managing external NAS or object through DSX. Let's give you some very simple of deployment. For example, for the SMB, and you can choose QNAP entry models like TVS H1688X model, which can give you up to 60 drives. You can combine SSD or SAS drive. We also give you some suggestions on the resources. You can install vFilO in QNAP virtualization station. You can start from 2 for redundant consideration. Then, if you want to expand the capacity, you can add more box of QNAP to scale out. You can form a volume group for active data, and also you can form another group of buckets for the inactive data, then use vFilO to archiving those inactive data. We'll expand that later. If you need a high performance, you can select QNAP another model, TSH2490FU. It's an all-flash NVMe, very fast storage, which can give you a very fast performance. And you can use DataCore DX component as a storage by giving it some capacity from the local, like a VNDK. You don't need to create a NAS folder, although we can support that, but you can just give it a storage, a volume to the DXS nodes. And then you can add scale out by adding more QNAP box as a scale out, like we explained in the previous slide. So now I want to give you a very simple functional demos by like add a storage systems, the QObject. You can automate the file archiving to the objects. You can also assimilate the existing file in a share, and you can change the data locations or have multiple copies. So how to add QObject to the vFilO? Well, I don't want to take too much time here, but just give you a screenshot in our console. When you add a storage system, in our console, there's two types of storage. One type is the NAS device, and the other type is object storage device. If you want to add a QObject, just give it a name. Here we call it QObject. Then you select the generic S3 as a storage device. On the right panel here, input the object folder, which is a QObject. Then give it access name, secret key, and endpoint. And that's it. Very simple. Once you add a storage systems in our panel, you see it in the buttons. There's a QObject. Storage device has been recognized by vFilO, and you will automatically scan how many buckets available to be added into vFilO. You also see there's a QNAS share folder, which means we can also consolidate the NAS through the NFS protocol. You can also use DSX that we say you can deploy vFilO in QVS, and there's a component called DSX. You can give it more capacity like BNTK as a storage as well. All right, so now we added the QObject to the vFilO, and also we have some block devices. We have some NAS devices. So we have different kind of resources. So what's the next? Well, DataCore can help you to automatically put the data in the right place. The DataCore itself has a telemetry. You will automatically learning what's the capability of the device. You will continually detect it, like the performance, the resiliency, what's the level of high availability or durability, how many nights it has. You can customize that by giving more information, for example, the cost, the locations, etc., etc. And then the vFilO will know more about this device. So when we have more understanding the profile of the backend storage, then we can use a feature called the objective in vFilO, which will give you a very high level and easy of use interface by setting the policy to automate file management. For example, you can put your statement, what kind of files, what kind of the file type, and then you can give it the activity range. For example, any file that is inactive over 6 weeks, okay, I want to put it into the bucket in an object, or just keep it don't move here in a local. And you can have advanced mode to have multiple conditions, if, else, if, or else if, etc., etc. So let's give you an example here, how to automate the file archiving to the object. Here I have the policy called archiving. The rule is simple. Just apply any live files. And if it's inactive for over 5 minutes, please move to QObject archiving tier, or just leave it there. It can be anywhere in a local, DXX, QNAP NAS, etc. Now, in our GUI, when this is shared, you can add an object to that share. Click the objectives we just given here as an archiving objective. Then you see in the button screenshot here, there's a demo 1 share. We just apply a new objective, so you can see there's all 8 objectives, and those files residing in this demo 1 are spread among 3 volumes. Let's look into this share, demo 1. In this demo 1, we see a bunch of PDF files, and all these files are reside on the storage volume called QNAP public, which means those files are just assimilated from the QNAP NAS. And there's a column called alignment, which means it's a indicator to let you know that this file is aligned with your policy or not. If not, you'll give it a red color. That's simple. So what happened when I apply the archiving objectives to this share folders? Well, the vFilO will automatically calculate that on the base time. You will start to move this file according to your policies. So after a while, you see that the storage volumes is moving, and the alignment indicator turned red, means it's trying to move something in the background. And for a while more later, you see that the storage volume changed from QNAP NAS to the QObject bucket. Very simple. And the light turned green means, okay, your policy, your objective, I'm able to achieve. Everything is perfect. You don't have to worry if the policy cannot make it. If the policy has a collisions, it doesn't matter. You can change that or modify that online. But you see here an example that managing the inactive file is very, very simple by using vFilO. You can apply this objective in the parent share folder or the subfolder, subdirectory, or particular files. So it's a file granularly management that differentiate vFilO with other solutions. You can also change data locations whenever you want. So when there's a new device added to vFilO, you will automatically create a new tier. You can pull or grouping these tiers in a newer group through another panel. But here you can simply just say, okay, in this share demo one, I want one more copy in the local DSX1 volume, or you want to have a second copy in object 2. So that gives you the redundancy of data very easily in the background. You don't need to care, well, okay, how do I keep the two data or in case of single point of value? Very simple in vFilO. Just click that multiple placement in the multiple devices, and that's it. Very simple, right? The other cool features that vFilO can help is whenever you have the existing NAS, which contain millions of files, and want to move that file into vFilO. Wow, that takes time. But the good news here is vFilO has the ability to assimilate the metadata without moving your data first. That's features called assimilations. So, for example, you have your QNAP in your data center, your home, and you can select like here you can choose other NAS, okay, and then give it some informations, and we will have some setting to read the metadata, and then this data is able to be read through the vFilO by giving it a new share. Well, there will be a little bit some steps and process to achieve that. If you are interested in how to assimilate the existing data share, please Google how to assimilate Linux share in vFilO. Then you will find this video recording will give you a very easy understanding demo on these features. I hope you can enjoy that. Let's continue to move and to see what else we have. Well, in vFilO, we also have some features like snapshot, WAN, encryption, and like some asset space eliminations, etc., etc. So vFilO is a full-featured NAS, but it's a software-defined approach, give you more flexibility. You can consolidate different kind of resources, can move that files anywhere you want. You can have automatically tiering, migrating, moving those data across the locations and devices. That is really, really flexible. So DataCore vFilO plus QNAP. Well, I want to make a short conclusions over at the end of today's sessions. QNAP has the capability to provide a block and file, and also they launch the QObject. These three types of resources can be used by vFilO. If you have iSCSI or fiber LAN provided to the vFilO, you will format that device and provide NFS and SMB protocol to your client. If you have existing QNAP or other NAS vendors, you can use vFilO to assimilate or migrate your data easily by using vFilO assimilation. Then you can use the object to archiving those inactive data to lower your cost, and you will automatically move in between when there's a file access frequently you can move back. So you can think of vFilO with QNAP like a bridging software platform, allow you to automatically move file and object in between to distribute your files or optimize your file store um, economic cost. Simplify the scale out and the management because you can scale one and one more nodes up to 40 nodes, even more. And we think this platform can help you to lower lots of manual efforts when you have need to expand or move the files. You can just set the policy, just automate the file placement by your policy setting, and it also support the metadata enhancement. Like in object storage, you can add some text to the file, so you can easily do some AI research, HPC computing, etc., etc. So that's the today's introduction about DataCore vFilO and how we can combine together with QNAP device. If you are more interested, you want to get your hands dirty, you want to have a try, please go to our website, datacore.com, and we have a hands-on lab on the website. It's called a test drive. You can enjoy a 90 minutes test drive there. And if you want to test the software, you can download it from the website and install it in the QNAP virtualization station. Okay, that's my sessions. I hope you enjoy. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I think Calvin will give you the contact information. So let's pass the last sessions to Calvin.
Okay, thank you, Joshua. And for this solution, we recommend product is TVS-H16AX and TS-H2490FU. And if you have tens of millions of files need to archive, think about our solution. It can help you and your company reduce your cost. Okay, this is today's update. Thanks for joining our podcast. Thank you.